Hey guys, and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're a returning viewer. I'm Maisie, and this is Maisie with a Z, and here we talk about all the books I read, ranging from YA fantasy to adult romance and everything in between. Today is a very belated February wrap-up. I'm filming this on March 31st. To be fair, this is not entirely my fault because I had a series of unfortunate events in March where the first week was finals week, and then I had spring break, which I would have gotten a lot done. Except I forgot to bring my camera battery charger home, and so could not film. And then got back, and right when I was like settling in for the quarter and ready to film, I had some keyboard issues that prevented me from being able to edit. It's okay, we're here now. And we're going to talk about my February about the books I read in February, or at least what I can remember of them, and then hopefully get this up soonish. Should I just combine this with my March TBR? Actually, change of plans. We are combining this with my March TBR because that's only 22 books. It's not that much more. So we'll start with the February books, move into the March books, and we'll get everything done together. And it'll be great and wonderful, and it'll mean maybe a little less editing. We'll see. But it will mean I can probably get this video up sooner. So that's what we're going for. So we'll start with February books and launch right into it because it's going to be a long video. I'll try to keep my comments about each book short. So first up is A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting by Sophie Irwin, and I gave this 4 stars. It was pretty good. It was really fun. It's this Regency kind of parody, and it's following our main character Kitty. After her father dies, she's responsible for her 4 younger sisters, and they're in a lot of debt, and so she decides to go to London for the season to try and find a rich husband in order to save her sisters. She goes, and she finds this kind of gullible person who she's about to get to propose to her, and when that person's older brother shows up, and sees right through her, and he's like, look, I will do whatever you want, just don't do this to my brother. Basically, he ends up having to help her, like, kind of find a rich husband and navigate London society, and obviously there's attraction between the two of them. It's really cute. I love their banter. I love Kitty's scheming. It's so fun. She's such a fun main character. I think I just would have loved like a little more chemistry between the two of them, and I don't know, maybe a little more romance, and then the ending felt unnecessarily high stakes and sudden. Overall, it's still really enjoyable. If you like Regency romance, definitely check it out because it's such a fun play on the genre. Yeah, loved Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting. And then we've got Violet Made of Thorns, which I didn't love so much. I gave it 3 stars. It's by Gina Chen. I really wanted to love this book. It's about this morally gray seer named Violet who works for the king of this kingdom. Basically, the king obviously has her like lie in her prophecies in order to support his own aims. She and the crown prince absolutely hate each other and always have. It was supposed to be enemies to lovers and morally gray witch, and it was supposed to be such a good time, and court politics and everything, and it just really wasn't delivering. Like, it kind of had all those elements, but they're thrown together kind of messily, and I don't think it was really working. I ultimately didn't care much about the conflict. I didn't think the romance was done well enough. I didn't really get the enemies to lovers build-up I was hoping for, and I don't know, it just wasn't what I would have liked out of it. I would have liked a little more morally grayness from the main character, and a little more interest from the love interest. I don't know. Like, I was hoping for Cruel Prince energy. I did not get Cruel Prince energy, and it's okay. But like, it was 3 stars, and I feel like even that might have been generous. It might have been worthy of 2.5, but we're going with 3. Then I feel like I need to cleanse myself and read a quick contemporary romance for February, and so I read Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This was 3.5 stars. It was a little disappointing. I love Ali Hazelwood's adult books. I think I've given them all 5 stars, maybe. Oh, her short story collection I did not give 5 stars. I think that was probably 4 stars. But this was 3.5, and it's Ali Hazelwood's first YA book. I think it's pretty decent. It's following our main character Mallory, who was a kind of chess prodigy when she was younger and then quit after her father's death. She's working at a car repair shop, and her best friend is also in chess and was doing a charity tournament and asked Mallory to come and like complete her 4-player team, and Mallory's like, fine, I'll do it one more time. And then she unknowingly beats like the leading player globally in chess, Nolan. He becomes a little obsessed with her. She ends up getting chosen for this chess fellowship. It's like a year where she's getting paid just to study chess and compete in tournaments, and they end up constantly being drawn together. It's cute, and I think she's bi, and I like that. I don't know, I enjoyed the two main characters, I enjoyed them together. The ending felt very anticlimactic. I didn't feel like there was much going on outside of the romance plotline, and the romance plotline wasn't really as present as, like, there wasn't as much chemistry as I would have liked. I don't know. Something was just not quite there for me, which is why it's 3.5 stars. I think if you like chess and want a kind of chess-based book, then this is a good one to read. But I'd have liked a little more from it. Oh, and I felt like there's this conflict with her friend that was supposed to be a kind of subplot, but that I don't think was handled very well. It was just, something was missing here for me, but it's fine. Then I read It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth by Zoe Thorogood, and I read this for my speculative fiction class as an example of speculative nonfiction, and it's this graphic novel that's autobiographical. In it, Thorogood is talking about her struggles with depression. It's really well done. I give it 4.5 stars. Like, it's really beautifully done. If mental health-wise you can handle the kind of like thorough discussion of depression, then I'd really recommend it. It's a really good graphic novel and absolutely brilliant. My 4.5 stars, just like, I would have looked a little more nuanced to the ending, and I don't know, there are sections of the book I didn't like fully love, but overall still thoroughly enjoyed it. Like 4.5 stars. Very much recommend it. Then I read The Rings of Saturn for my autobiography class, and this was 4 stars. It's by W.G. Sebald. It's basically following our narrator, who's nameless, on this walking tour of the east coast of England, and it's just so interesting. It weaves together so many different aspects of history and stories and people. It's probably the most like unique approach to like narration I've ever read. It was so interesting. I absolutely loved it. I loved its commentary on like history and how human life evolved. It's so lovely. I really recommend it. If you read it, you have to be okay reading something that doesn't really have a plot, and it's kind of just, it's a little rambling because it's following this narrator's walking tour. It's inherently rambling, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Highly recommend it. And then we've got This Day Changes Everything by Edward Underhill. This I had an e-arc of. I didn't love it. It's following these 2 queer teens who each come to New York for their marching bands to perform in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. Abby is completely in love with her best friend Kat, and she's hoping this trip will be the perfect time to confess her feelings, and she has this plan with this annotated copy of one of their favorite books. Meanwhile, Leo is a trans guy, and he like knows he's going to be outed to his extended family on the Thanksgiving Day Parade because he's obviously presenting as a boy, and they don't know that he's trans yet. So he's really worried about that, and so when he accidentally makes Abby lose her book on the subway that she was going to use confess to Kat, he basically offers to help her come up with a substitute plan where they're running around New York to get souvenirs from the places this book is set in order to do a different confession. And meanwhile, as they're running around New York, they're obviously falling for each other. Like, it's cute. It's just, I wasn't sold on the chemistry between the 2 main characters. It felt very insta-lovey. They just didn't feel like they clicked at all to me. I gave it 3 stars. It didn't even have like as much New York chaos as I would have liked when compared to like The Getaway List, which was another New York chaos book, which I really enjoyed. This one I don't think I enjoyed that much. Like, there are a lot of books that are set with the 2 main characters running all over New York doing chaotic things, and this I don't think did it well enough. I also think there are these points I was trying to make about queerness that I wasn't entirely hitting on. Overall, it was very meh. The idea had potential. It just was not there for me. See, and also the like reasons they kept having like delay them rejoining their band always felt very thin for me. I feel like it needed a lot more work than it had, and I could have forgiven it the weak plot if there had been more chemistry between the characters, but ultimately I didn't really feel like they connected that much. I was especially annoyed because I went in expecting this to be just a friendship book. Like, I was not expecting them to get together because I thought Abby was going to get together with her best friend. So when I got a little in and realized, oh, he's obviously setting out for this to be a romance book, I was like, because that's just not what I was looking for here. Like, I was expecting The Day That Changes Everything to be about their character growth and them making discoveries about themselves, and instead it's just about them falling for each other after knowing each other for 24 hours. So I don't know. It was fine, but it wasn't great. And then I read Alfred and Emily by Doris Lessing, and this was another book from my autobiography class. I gave it 3 stars. It's split into 2 parts, where one part is following this hypothetical progression of her parents' lives if World War I had never happened, and the second part is exploring their like actual lives. And the concept is interesting, but I didn't care that much. Like, it just was not that compelling to me, and I don't know, I think it might have been more compelling for readers who are more closely, like older readers who have more familiarity with like the impact World War I had on its generation of people, but that's not me. Like, I obviously do not know anyone who was in World War One, and even like my grandparents were children during World War II, and their lives were obviously shaped by that a bit, but it's not like, I don't know. I feel like part of it was just this book was not for me. The other part is just I did not care about her parents at all. I didn't think it was that compelling. So that's 3 stars. Where interesting concept, I personally did not like the execution. And then we have The Wrath of the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh, and this I read for my Reading 2010's YA for a Week vlog. It's based on 1001 Nights, and it's following our main character, Shahrazad. Basically, the king of her country, Khalid, has been marrying wives and having them killed the next day, and so when her best friend is killed, then she volunteers to be the next bride in order to plan to kill him, and she survives by telling him stories that make him want her to stay another day. They end up falling for each other, and that's my biggest issue with this book is, 1, I don't think she's conflicted enough about falling for this guy who killed her best friend. 2, even though he's eventually revealed to have a reason for killing her best friend, I don't think the reason is enough to justify falling in love. Like, forgiveness, sure. Falling in love, I don't know if I could forgive the person who ordered my best friend to die. It also feels a little insta-lovey. I really wanted to like this. I did really enjoy our main character, except for the part where she's falling in love with the person who killed her best friend. But overall, didn't love it. Didn't find the love interest at all compelling. So it's 3.5 stars. But I am reading the second book in the duology. I've already started it. Overall, not my fave thing ever. And then we have Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. I don't actually have a rating for this because I don't know what to rate it. But this was another book from our autobiography class. And it's an autobiographical graphic novel telling the author's story of growing up in Iran during the Islamic Revolution. And it's really well done. I don't know. I was hovering around a 4-star for it where, like, I don't know. It's obviously brilliantly done. It's just, I don't know if it was fully at a 5-star for me. So yeah, that's why I currently don't have a rating for it. I might eventually decide on one, but I don't know. Like, I'd really recommend it. It's very well done. It's like, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you know what Persepolis is. It's very famous. And then we have Daughter Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. And this is 2.5 stars. I didn't like it. You can hear more about both this and The Wrath of the Dawn and An Ember in the Ashes, which is a book I finished in March, in the 2010s YA reading vlog. But I was expecting to at least kind of like this because I really enjoyed Taylor's Strange the German duology back when I read it in like early high school. But this was not it. Like, the magic system was fun. I just didn't care. The character was so not like the other girls, and the big twist at the end was absolutely not a twist, and I just could not have cared less about the story. Like, I started out optimistic, and my interest quickly diminished. I didn't care about the main character. I didn't like the love interest. I don't know. I just did not enjoy it. I didn't find the plot compelling enough to carry the romance that I didn't really like. The love interest in this does something so terrible at the end. I genuinely don't know how the romance will ever recover from it, but I'm not going to stick around to find out. I'm not finishing this trilogy. So yeah, not a fan. I have more thoughts. You can find them in that vlog. Okay, and then last book in February, we have Winterkeep by Kristen Cashore. And this is the 4th book in the Graceling Realm series, which I absolutely love. So it was no surprise to me that I gave this 4.5 stars. I really can't say much about the plot without talking about the first several books of the series, but it's set on a new continent, so separate from the one the previous books are set on. But it's following Bitterblue, who's Queen of Monsey, and she goes on this diplomatic trip to this new country, and it's following her. It's following our main character on that continent is Lavisa, who's the daughter of 2 politicians, and begins to recognize their schemes and kind of has to decide between like her family and doing what's right. And I don't know, no one does politics and trauma in YA fantasy like Kristen Cashore does. Like, she does it so well, and I think this book was building on the themes that the Graceling Realm often covers really well and approaching them in new ways and building on the world really well as well. I liked having this sort of conclusion to Bitterblue's character arc. I don't know, I really enjoyed it. My only reason for giving it 4.5 stars is I think it dragged on a little long for what it was, which is another critique I also had for Bitterblue, which is the book before this, where they're each over 500 pages, and I think probably could have been 100 pages shorter and done the same thing. But they're both really slow and lovely character work, and I do really enjoy both of them. But yes, Winterkeep is 4.5 stars. So yeah, that's all the February books, and let's go ahead and get into the March books. So yeah, the first book on this list is the last book I read for the Reading 2010's YA for a Week challenge, and that's An Ember in the Ashes by Sabaa Tahir. And this was 3.5 stars. It's just, I might actually lower it to 3 stars. Yeah, you know what? I'm lowering this to 3 stars. I didn't like it that much. I think I liked it more in the moment because it was better written than The Wrath and the Dawn, and definitely better written than Daughter of Smoke and Bone. But ultimately, I don't think I connected with the plot enough. It's set at this military school in this kingdom, and our main characters are Laia and Elias. Elias is a soldier who's been raised in this military school, and he's planning on running away and escaping from the Empire, but then is chosen to compete in this competition to become the new emperor, I think. And so he's kind of forced to stay because he's told by these prophetic priest people that that's the only way for him to truly get freedom, is to stay and compete. And meanwhile, our main girl Laia, her brother is arrested for working with rebels, and she makes a deal with like the rebel organization that she will spy for them inside of this military school in exchange for them freeing her brother. So it's set at the school around this competition, and I was expecting to really enjoy it. I don't know, it felt too long for what it was. Like, it feels very standard YA fantasy plot-wise to me, and I don't think it needed to be almost 500 pages. And I wish it had been doing a lot more with the magical entities in it, where it has Jinn, and should have been super interesting, but ultimately I didn't feel like the magic parts of it were doing enough, and maybe they'll do more in the later parts of this series. So yeah, I am probably going to continue with this series, but it's probably not going to be for a bit. Yeah, I mean, like, it's well written, and I do have faith that the series is going to get very good. I just personally, this first book was not fully for me. Actually, no, I'm bringing it back to 3.5 stars, sorry. 3.5 stars seems fair. Because again, it's well written, it's just I didn't fully connect with it. I feel like 3.5 stars is a fair rating for that. Okay, and now that's out of the way, we're going to talk about the 2 Veronica Speedwell books I read this month, which were A Perilous Undertaking and A Treacherous Curse. These are books in the Veronica Speedwell series, which follow our main characters, Veronica and Stoker, as they are uncovering mysteries. That's a different mystery in each book, and there's a slow burn romance between the 2 of them. And so these are the second and third books, where the second book, Perilous Undertaking, they're basically asked by this high-up noblewoman to investigate this murder of an artist that had happened, where a man has been falsely convicted and is going to be executed soon, and they're asked to find the true murderer. It's really fun. It's set around these like artists in London who are all kind of like living together, and it's a good time. And then the third book, A Treacherous Curse, is following them investigating this curse that has led to the disappearance of someone from Stoker's past on the way home from this Egyptian archaeological dig. So it's very like Egyptian themed, and I don't know, it's a good time. Really enjoyed both of them, gave them 4 stars. Can't give much more description about the plot, obviously, because they're mystery books and like the vibes are kind of all you need. Yeah, and then I read another Egyptian-based book, which is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. I gave this 4 stars. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. Where I love Isabel Ibanez's writing, I don't love Written in Moonlight, I think, but I loved Woven in Starlight and whatever the dragon book was called, I don't remember. But this is following our main character, Inez, who's from Argentina, but her parents spend much of each year in Cairo because they're archaeologists, and she's never been allowed to go. But when her parents mysteriously die, then she travels there to meet her uncle and figure out what happened with her parents, because she thinks the circumstances of their death seem a little off. And meanwhile, she comes along on her uncle's archaeological dig and starts to uncover this kind of like conspiracy, and it's a good time. There's a kind of cute romance. It's a good time. It's just, I really wish this had been a standalone. It's a duology, I think, where the second book's coming out this year, and I kind of feel like they could have been condensed, but, you know, I'm fine with it. I did really enjoy it. Like, yeah, the plot felt drawn out a little longer than necessary, and I wasn't completely sold on the romance. But there's a second book for the romance to develop, so I'm probably fine with it. Yeah, it's a good time. I absolutely love our main character. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the second book. And then we have The Long Game by Elena Armas, and this is the author of The Spanish Love Deception and The American Roommate Experiment, both of which I really enjoyed. And this is following our main character, Adeline, and she works in, I want to say, like, publicity for this Miami soccer team and that her father owns, and she dreams of one day taking over the team. After this embarrassing social media video of her goes viral, then she's exiled to work for the team's like charity project, which is sponsoring this girls soccer team in North Carolina for like 9-year-olds. So she's there, and meanwhile our love interest Cameron is a retired goalkeeper from the soccer league, and he's extremely famous, and he's kind of living in that town undercover, coaching that team. They initially dislike each other, but obviously end up falling for each other, and it's lots of small town energy. I loved her relationships with like the girls on the team. I don't know, it's a really good time. I gave it 4 stars. A big part of the reason I didn't give it 5 stars is it does that thing where a romance book will keep a key part of characters' backgrounds like hidden from the reader until later in the book, and I just never liked that, because because it doesn't make sense that you have a character's inner monologue and they'll be like, the incident. And I'm like, just tell us what it is. So like, I never enjoy that. And that's the main reason I gave this 4 stars, is I would have loved to have known what was actually going on with the character, especially since the reason is such a big part of like what's driving her personality, and the fact that we don't find it out until like very late in the book did take away from my enjoyment. So I only gave it 4 stars, but I still really recommend it. It's kind of the same vibes as Book Lovers, but sports instead of literary agents. You know? It's a good time. But it has that same dynamics a little bit. Then I read my second Allie Hazelwood book of the year, which was Bride, which I gave 3 stars. I want to make it clear I did enjoy it. It was fun. It was a good time. It's just, I would have loved a little more world building. I would have loved them not to use the word stan in a paranormal book. Overall, I really would have loved just a clear idea of what was happening, because it was not initially clear to me what time period it's existing in or anything, and I enjoyed it. I loved our main character being named Misery. That is an iconic vampire name, but the fact that she's named Misery and then every other vampire has a completely normal name, and when their names are supposedly decided by like Vampire Council, I'm like, that was a weird world-building choice. Like, it was not the best mate plotline I've ever read. Where, one, I think it was way too obvious they were mates from the beginning. I don't know, like, it was a good time, and I love a good soulmate trope. And, yeah, I think I would have liked it a lot more if there'd been a little more world-building. Like, it doesn't need, I'm not looking for complete fantasy book world-building from my paranormal romance book. But I would love some understanding of how this world is functioning. And I don't think we got that. Oh, I also didn't like how she tried to have a scientific explanation for why there were werewolves and vampires and just attributed it to genetic mutations, when the werewolves are fully transforming into wolves. Like, that's not the same level of thing as they drink blood instead of eating food. They are transforming into another animal. You have to let magic exist, Allie Hazelwood, if you're going to write a paranormal romance. We can't all be STEM-based books. It just doesn't make sense. I liked the romance part, but everything else about it annoyed me so much that I could not give it any more than 3 stars. Oh, and I thought the 3rd act breakup here was very poorly justified too. Like, it's fun. I would totally reread it. I did really enjoy it. Can't give it more than 3 stars. And then we had The Do's and Donuts of Love by Adipa Jagirdar, and absolutely love her. Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating, absolutely adored. This follows our main character Shireen, who's recently broken up with her girlfriend Chris over, they're both bakers and their parents run rival donut shops, but that's not really relevant. But they both go on this Irish teen baking show over the summer. So obviously Shireen's like forced to like be around her ex a lot, but she's also slowly falling for Neve, another contestant, and it's this love triangle thing, lots of like baking energy. I usually don't love reality show books, and this wasn't really an exception, which I was hoping it would be. I mean, I like this a little more than like the dating show ones. My main issue is the love triangle, which I really cannot discuss without spoiling the book, so I'm not going to. But I did really enjoy it. I gave it 3.5 stars. I just didn't love the resolution, plot-wise or love triangle-wise. Not because I'm unhappy about who she ended up with, but because of the way it was like plotted and paced throughout the book. So I did give it 3.5 stars. Really recommend it if you really enjoy reality show books or books about food or anything. I think you'll really like this. It's just, personally for me, I had enough issues with kind of like the conclusion, and not necessarily the conclusion, but the way the conclusion was executed and plotted, that I couldn't really give it more than 3.5 stars, which is disappointing because I really wanted to love this because I love this author. Oh, and there's also this friendship subplot that I don't think was done well enough, and I think it would have been better without it because it was very strange. And then we have Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake, and this is the 3rd book in our Bright Falls trilogy, where I read Delilah Green Doesn't Care and loved it. And then I DNF'd the 2nd book because I hated the love interest so much. Like Astrid, who's the stepsister from Delilah Green Doesn't Care, who is one of the main characters, I loved her. I hated the love interest so much that I could not finish that book. But I decided to read Iris Kelly Doesn't Date anyway, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It's this fake dating trope between Iris and Stevie, where they had this kind of disastrous hookup, and then a week later end up in the same queer production of Much Ado About Nothing, where Stevie's an actor and Iris is just doing it for fun, because it's at this theater that is a mixture of professional and community actors, which isn't really relevant. they end up agreeing to fake date so that Stevie's ex-girlfriend, who's the director of the show, won't like constantly be like pitying her or whatever. And meanwhile, Iris is a romance author, and Stevie's agreeing to like help her with like romance, like fake dating, help her get more in like the romantic spirit by going on their fake dates. There's also this like sex lessons trope later, where my issue with this is loved the main characters together. They were so good. The dynamic, like the chemistry was really there. My issue is how many tropes and subplots they were, and they were tossed together in so convoluted a manner and not really executed properly. So I had to take off a star for that. I realistically probably should have given it 3.5 stars, but I loved the two main characters together enough that like I had to give it 4 stars. It's just, fake dating trope is good, but it kind of disappears after the first half of the book. Despite them not stopping fake dating, it just stops being discussed, and they stop being in situations related to it because Stevie's friends basically just completely disappear, which is who they're fake dating for. And then the romance for Iris's book thing is kind of done, but like mostly in the later half of the book and not really at the beginning. Then the sex lesson thing was completely unnecessary. It just was like, it felt very messily plotted, and I had to take off a star for that because the plot lines just did not gel together enough at all. Still a good time, but I think it could have used a little more conscious thought about how these things were fitting together because they didn't. It's still a good time. The character development is really well done. And that's what makes it possible for me to ignore all like the messy plotting, is the character development plot and emotional backbone of the book is really there. And the chemistry is there. And then we've got Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. And I would have DNF'd this book after like 10%, but I ended up reading it all basically in one afternoon where I was just like not having a good mental health day, and I just decided to read this incredibly bad romance book. I was like, might as well. It's not good. I gave it 2.5 stars. Probably would have given it 2 stars, but it's like addicting enough for me to read in like 2 sittings, so it was like, it deserved a little better than 2 stars. It's enemies to lovers following this ice skater and hockey player where we both go to the same school, and when the hockey rink is out of commission for a month or so, then they end up having to share the same rink and blah blah blah. Like, it was so insta-lovey. I didn't think the chemistry was that. Like, there were some cute scenes, but there were way too many sex scenes for my taste. They were, like, way too gratuitous, and the plot wasn't there, the character development wasn't there, character depth wasn't there. I didn't even think they were that cute together, and I don't know, I just didn't enjoy it that much. 2.5 stars. Not that good. Wouldn't recommend it. So I mostly just read it because the second book in the series is called Wildfire, and it's following summer camp counselors, and I really wanted to read that. But ultimately, probably not going to read it because I didn't like this first book enough. Like, I disliked this first book so much. I'm like, I don't think I could do that to myself. And then we have Dangerous Liaisons by Pierre Chandelot de Laclos, and this I read for one of the classes I'm taking this quarter, which is about the evolution of the novel throughout history. I would recommend it if you want to read a very addicting classic about people being truly despicable, as long as you're willing to read the trigger warnings, because there is sexual assault and other stuff in this that, like, you should read the trigger warnings before reading it. It's following just these letters between different characters. 2 of them are these ex-lovers who are absolutely horrible people, and they're basically helping each other like play games of like manipulation and seduction with other characters. Absolutely historical people, but it is so interesting. It's such an interesting book. It is so addicting and entertaining. It's just, read trigger warnings because bad things happen. But yeah, super addictive. If you're looking for a classic that you are going to get through because it is entertaining, try this. Like, it is, fun's not the right word, but it's addicting. Finally, we have Artifacts of an Ex by Jennifer Chen, and I gave this 3 stars. This is another book where I really wanted to like it. It's following my character Chloe, who's just moved from New York to LA with her parents to take care of her grandmother who has dementia. Her boyfriend breaks up with her via like UPS box, and she has this idea for this art exhibit where she'll display other teenagers' breakup boxes. She ends up meeting this guy, Daniel, who's a filmmaker, and his thing is every girl he's ever dated, after like 2 dates, decides she wants to get back together with her ex. So he refuses to date her, even though like he really likes Chloe. Then like realizes she's still into her ex, and so she can't date him right now. And eventually they end up getting together, obviously. And there's also this subplot about figuring out her grandmother's pineapple pastry recipe, which she's forgotten how to make. I really love books about artists, and I really wanted to enjoy it. It's just, the exhibit didn't sound that good. Like, the exhibit idea wasn't compelling enough for me to, like, really be invested in it, and I think it took up too much of the plot line. Like, I would have loved a little more, like, character development on Chloe's part in comparison, and a little more emotional depth to David beyond just he's been dumped a lot by girls who want to get back together with their exes. So I really wanted to like it, but it just wasn't really there, which is kind of the theme of a lot of the books in this wrap up. So yeah, that's the last book I read in March. I read 22 books total in February, March, because I read 11 each month. I wouldn't say they're the most successful reading months ever. I had one 5-star read, and that was a book I had to read for class. So I'm hoping April's going to be much more successful. Thanks so much for staying around to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. You can find me on my blog, Instagram, Goodreads, and Storygraph at the links in the description. And yeah, thanks so much for staying around to the end, and I'll see you later.